So welcome everyone to March's meeting. This is our first virtual meeting ever for the user group, obviously due to the COVID-19 incidents. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Daniel Brown and I am the user group lead for the user group. And I'm just going to slide through this. Just a little bit about myself, everyone. I think has probably heard of me in some shape or form, judging by who's on the list. Long-time SharePoint user, consultant, ACS member, DCS lead, and everything SharePoint in between and O365. A quick update around our events. At this stage, our April meeting will also be a virtual event. Just do things calm down and we see what's going on. We'll go from there and play it safe. Next one is, because we're all information people, stick to the information sources. There is a lot of misinformation going around, so stick with sources that you know. I got this from SA Health this afternoon, so just check the official websites and go from there. Next one. I don't know why that's one there. That one should be a bit further. However, we are always looking for presenters as well for 15-20-minute sessions. If you've used SharePoint in a particular way, done something really cool with it, Power Apps, Flow, always interested to hear and pass on that knowledge and share it to the community. And yeah, obviously we've got a pretty booked out session this year, but if you do want to present, I'm happy to slide people in. Especially with moving to virtual events, we don't have to stick to the traditional third Tuesday of each month. We can be a bit more dynamic and fluid in that sense, especially if everyone's going to be working from home. So yeah, we should be able to go. Let's check your comments. Yes, of course, we can present on O365. It does not have to be SharePoint at all, Sharon. It can be anything connected to the Office 365 platform sphere. It's just that SharePoint tends to be a big thing that binds them together. It's not the only thing, but that's just where we sort of come from. And yes, can be any of the topics. Speaker lineup. Today we do have Sam returning to present, so thank you, Sam. I'll let Sam introduce himself later. Obviously, through the rest of the year, as things progress and settle down with COVID-19, we'll see how we all go. But at this stage, that is the presenter lineup for the rest of the year. Topics to be released as I get them from the presenters. The ACS, if you're unaware, the Australian Computer Society is the professional society for computer professionals. I've been a member now for 12 or 13 years. It is a very dynamic institution and it can benefit you in some ways, provides benefits as members. Worthwhile checking out. For this event, you do get 1.5 hours of computer professional hours, which does lead to your certification, which you maintain each year to be a member and all that sort of lovely stuff. And it is, the CEO is not in next Wednesday. That was last month. I forgot to take that out. But yes, please check out the ACS. It is worthwhile if you haven't. A whole bunch of events also have gone virtual, obviously due to COVID-19, MVP Summit, Business Apps Build, E3, and a whole bunch of others. Still waiting to hear on the Digital Workplace Conference for Australia on what that's going to be going on. But with a ban on 500 or more people, I think that's probably in doubt at this stage. So just wait to hear on that. Office 365, or well now the Microsoft 365 roadmap. This also does contain O365, so it's all consolidated into one. Bookmark it, check it out every so often. I've actually got it set as one of my homepage or home tabs. So I can also see what happens as it does actually pop up, because open up browsers all the time. Other Microsoft programs to certainly have a look at is the Office Developer Program, where you can get a 12-month free trial of E5 subscription. It is free at the moment. It is certainly worthwhile checking out. On that note, also, there is Microsoft offering free E1 trial accounts for 6 months. Due to the COVID-19 situation, so definitely worth checking that out as well if you're looking at a way of getting O365. Working from home, there's a ton of resources out there. Just on the note of Microsoft Teams, just don't deploy and run. Have a look at the guidance around. There's a ton of information around on security compliance, because we also have to think of what comes next. So in 6 months' time, when we are reintegrating all these files and data back into the corporation, how do we do that? And we want to make that transition as easy for our clients and customers and users, and B, as easy for the organization to progress that as well. And C, also for yourselves, because a lot of us are power users. We do want to sort of do things once, not do things many times. So just have a look and think about that, of how it's going to play out in the future. Office 2010, if you haven't heard by now, because I've been harping on it quite some time, is coming to an end of life in October this year. It is end of life. Security updates are going to finish. It's just time to upgrade and put it to bed. If you haven't got a strategy and you're still using it, you need to get a strategy in place now. We're only 6 months out before that happens. More bugs have been fixed this month with Microsoft. All versions of SharePoint are suffering from bugs. A whole bunch of cross-site scripting attacks were fixed this month with SharePoint, and also excuse me, and also a whole bunch of Word bugs that are also affecting SharePoint as well, because SharePoint has the Word rendering engine in to some degree, and that's also affecting it. So please patch ASAP, because these exploits are being used in the wild. They are definitely being used against people. Microsoft Press discounts if you're wanting to buy some books, because you're working from home and got a whole bunch of time as well, because we all have a whole bunch of spare time. I do have discounts for the codes. Those are the codes here. So check those out at your leisure. No problem there. We've got a whole other bunch of local groups. I know SQL Server User Group is also cancelled this month. Their user group meeting was tomorrow. Other groups are exploring their ways and platforms on how to conduct their meetings, but it's a safe bet to say that probably most will at some stage become virtual events. But please check out the local groups. They are worthwhile going to. They do pass on a whole bunch of knowledge. And also thanks to our sponsors. Catering is not provided by me today for obvious reasons, and our venue is obviously still provided by Microsoft, but we also thank them because they do help us throughout the year. And with that being said, I'll hand over to Sam, who is, oh, sorry, the speaker lineup again. Just a quick lineup of what we've got going. Our social media that everyone is probably familiar with. We're mainly on Facebook and LinkedIn because those are the two ones. And now we're over to Sam. So I'll let Sam introduce himself. Sam has presented to the group a few times, and we welcome him back. So thank you, Sam, again, and I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks for that. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's going all right. And I just assume that my voice is coming loud and clear.
Yeah, no problem.
No problem. Yeah, perfect. All right. Let me get my slides up, and then we'll start. Can you see my slides now?
Yes.
Yes, I can see them.
Perfect. All right. So thanks for joining us, everyone. I know there's been so much going on, and ironically, I had actually picked Teams and PowerAutomate as the topic for this month without actually knowing what's going to happen. But I guess it's probably can't find a better time to actually talk about Teams a bit more than the recent days. So yeah, hopefully everyone's all staying out of trouble, and hopefully we will get through this. So so the primary topic that I wanted to talk to you about today was pretty much around I think everyone these days knows about Teams. Skype for Business. I know a few people are still using Skype for Business, but and some have moved on to Teams, but at a really basic level, I guess. So today's topic is predominantly around the advanced uses of Teams, I guess, and just to show you the ways of integrating this with Power Automate, and then how you can actually seamlessly integrate both of these to kind of get like a really amazing level of integration and streamlining going on. And then that can only mean one thing. That's only going to make you work more efficiently and be more productive. So that's what today's topic's going to be about. A little bit about myself. I work as the head of AI at Pernix in Adelaide. I've run the Dynamics user group for a number of years, and I'm a regular speaker at all the user groups, or 3 user groups. In Adelaide, I mean, my background has come from Microsoft through integration, automation, architecture, and AI kind of topics, and then we obviously can't forget about Office 365 and Azure. So my passion has always been around like all these fantastic platforms that are coming out, and trying ways to I guess maximize the benefits that we can get from them. And I'm a bit of a photographer as well. Whenever I don't have my laptop in front of me, I would actually have a camera in front of me, trying to get some downtime. All right, so why did I actually pick this topic? First of all, I've actually posted a link to an online Q&A, so feel free to jump into that and start posting your questions. And I thought like that might be easy way of getting everyone a chance to ask questions, and everyone can see the questions and the answers coming out online. So feel free to jump online, go to that link, and keep that open on the side, and start posting your questions as we go, and then we'll get to the Q&A at the end. So what prompted me to actually talk about this? So I've, as I was mentioning before, I've seen many customers just adopting Microsoft Teams as a bit of a, as a straightforward, Skype for Business replacement. It's just not a chatting tool. It's just not a conferencing tool. We have Zoom and, Cisco and all these other tools. Why do I need Teams? Or we are perfectly happy with sending emails and making phone calls. So what's the whole argument around Teams? And that's what made me wonder, the fact that, the message hasn't actually gone out to the market just yet. And just based on my observations, at least. And so that's what I'm trying to address, hopefully, in this session. So currently, Teams, as you know, being used for instant messaging, meetings, sharing files, as a video conferencing tool, pretty much like what we're doing here today, and use this for, simply speaking, file storage and file sharing. But that's not all. And for majority of the users, it's just a Skype for Business replacement. So what else can we actually do? So Microsoft is kind of taking, so with all of the product suite that's available inside within Office 365, Microsoft have actually really taken an approach where they're actually making, they're actually considering conversations, conversations that people are having, or interactions that people are having, either by sending a message or having a phone call or having a meeting or collaborating on a project. I mean, conversations or conversing or collaborating is like a key topic for Microsoft from Office 365 perspective. And with Teams in the picture, it literally enables staff or workers or frontline workers or back office staff or whoever you have in your organization to actually do more, because it actually works as a bit of a single pane of glass, and I'll actually cover that off later on. With using with Teams, we can actually promote more of the self-service capabilities. I know most organizations will have either an intranet or an online form. They might have some sort of an IT management tool or IT portal kind of tool to do self-service, but it's predominantly around that kind of topics, requesting for something or raising a problem with IT kind of thing. But self-service can easily expand into so many other things, inter-business interactions, interacting with different business units or divisions in the organization, or even third parties. So and just letting people do more by themselves. and this can also enable like a fast decision making as well. So currently, like lots of people are facing problems with like finding the right thing at the right time, like having access to the right data at the right time, so that they can actually make decisions, take actions and plan ahead. So hopefully, like so I can show you a couple of ways how Teams could help with that. And Teams is just not, it's not just another internal chatting tool or internal collaboration tool. You can actually quite very well, again, within within compliance, and regular like IT regulations kind of boundaries, you can actually integrate Teams very well with external services and respond to external events, because like Teams is about like providing a single pane of glass. It's not just saying it's not just about like just having Teams and Office 365 together. It's about opening up Teams to so many other opportunities. And another thing that I want to emphasize is like how you can actually reduce context switching, or like application switching, or task switching. I mean, if you imagine like most of the things that you're going through these days, like it's like you have an ERP, you have a CRM, you have an intranet, you have a file storage, you have email, you have let's say Skype for Business for chatting. So it's like you're literally if you actually count everything that you have, I can bet that you're actually dealing with at least 10 things at a time for various different things. And Teams provides a nice platform to actually reduce that. So what extra things can we do with this? So we can have teams or different businesses running inside Teams completely, like running their business operations, and that is like extending the Teams capability beyond like file sharing. You can actually build in functionality so that you actually consider Teams as a platform, not as an IM tool. If you have like workflow requirements or business process automation kind of requirements. So what I mean by that is if you have requirements around streamlining your existing business process, Teams provides a nice foundation to look into as well. And of course, like streamlining your task, yeah, like your day-to-day tasks or your duties of your job. Where you can actually use Teams to actually automate and streamline most of that stuff, so you don't have to go jumping between like 10 different applications. So I'm just assuming that everyone knows what's Team is, like what Teams looks like. So we'll park Teams conversation for a bit there, and then we'll jump into PowerAutomate. So what's PowerAutomate? So PowerAutomate is a powerful workflow engine, which is part of your Office 365 suite. Again, like you don't need to have Office 365 to have PowerAutomate. There's a free version, as well as there's a separate plan, so you can use PowerAutomate, or also known as Microsoft Flow. So you can actually start using this straight away without having any dependency on the level of Office 365 licenses you have. And it actually uses like a connector-based approach to solving business problems. So what I mean by that is an application or a data source or some sort of object that you want to actually tie together is considered as a connector. It's quite straightforward. And then a connector or an object or an entity or an application will expose like various functionality. And then, so if you are to actually make use of the out of the box, there's about like more than 250 pre-built connectors for like majority of the popular online services. So PowerAutomate is part of the Microsoft Power Platform. So there's three key things in the Microsoft Power Platform. There's Power Apps, that is for building data-oriented applications. and you have Power BI, as you would know, that is for BI and analytics. And then you have Power Automate that actually provides connectors and workflow features as well as integration capability. And all of this stuff is underpinned by Microsoft Azure. And then around this, as you can see, you've got your Office 365, you've got your Dynamics 365, standalone applications, third-party applications that you can actually bring into this ecosystem. So what are the basics of Power Automate? So everything is a connector. So if you consider SharePoint, Office 365, your Outlook, Mail, Microsoft Teams, Dynamics, SAP, Salesforce, Dropbox, OneDrive, like they're all connectors. So what happens is like you have connectors that are actually triggering an event. So for example, an event could be receiving an email into a mailbox, or creating a record in SharePoint, or uploading a file into SharePoint. So various connectors or various objects that participate in this ecosystem will have some sort of a trigger. And triggers can also be time-based, or triggers that are kind of like running on a schedule, once a night, once a day, once a minute. Kind of thing, as well as a trigger can be a reaction to a HTTP request, a receiving of a HTTP request as well. And what that means is the Power Automate will actually act as a mini web service. So once the triggers, once the trigger is triggered, then you can actually chain up like various other connectors and then perform various actions. So triggers is what notifies Power Automate to kick in. And that's kind of like, if you go back to the old days of programming, like, it's kind of like your event-driven programming, like, you have an event and then you, respond to that. So Power Automate is like that. So once it's triggered, you have then access to various other connectors that's got various actions. And then you can actually build up like a flow of events and actions in there. So what does this mean for Microsoft Teams? So Teams got a bunch of triggers. So there are so we can actually trigger a Power Automate when a team member is added to a team or a channel, when a message is posted, or when like yourself is actually mentioned in a message. Someone saying at Sam, have you done this work or something, or simply someone posting on a channel saying, hey guys, have you seen something, blah blah blah. So you can actually get Power Automate to kick in automatically based on these triggers, and triggers get updated quite regularly. And various connectors will have various levels of or different types of triggers. So the starting point is the trigger. So when you are planning for an automation, think about the starting point and the triggers that are supported. So actions. So some of the actions available within Power Automate are get teams. So you can actually retrieve teams programmatically through the API, so through the Teams connector. You can actually get channels. You can get a list of channels based on the team. You can read messages, again, within channels that you have allowed this for. You can programmatically create channels. So this is quite useful in the sense of if you are running like a third party, for example, if you're running like a third party project management tool, you could actually say, when a project is added to your third party tool, you can actually pick that up as a trigger point, and then go and create a channel or a team inside Teams, so that you can have a bit of an automation going, so that when your project is created in your ERP or in your project management tool, a Teams collaboration space is created automatically, responding to that. You can the most popular one that I'm using these days is posting messages, and I'll show you various ways of doing that. So you can post messages to a channel or directly to a person. And since Shifts has kind of gone under the Microsoft Teams banner these days, there are a couple of actions that you can do within Shifts as well. So if you're using the Shifts module of Microsoft Teams, have a look at what you can automate through Power Automate. So what are the other features? So you can do things like you can share your flows. So when you build something in Power Automate, you can actually share that with your team or your colleagues, as well as organizations can develop flows at an organization level. And obviously you may have actually heard about the big brother of Power Automate is Azure Logic Apps. So for more enterprise level automation, consider Logic Apps. So you can actually have approval workflows. So if you can relate to having approval workflows inside SharePoint, where you actually have like a workflow getting kicked in when something happens, and then you can actually trigger off like an approval workflow where an approval is requested from various parties, and then when they provide the approval or consent, then the workflow resumes. And then a couple of things that I will actually show you is like how Power Automate itself can actually live inside Teams. So if you're already using Power Automate, you would be used to logging onto Power Office 365, going into the Power Automate module or the app, and then doing it that way. But Power Automate actually lives as an app for Teams, so you can actually manage everything inside Teams. So before I go further, I'll actually jump into a short demo. So let me know when you can see my screen again. Is my screen up, Dan?
Yep. Well, I'm looking at
PowerPoint. Yeah. Perfect. So so I've got my I've got a team site set up. So I'm running on a Office 365 subscription. So I have access to Teams, and then again I've got a really simple team and a couple of channels, kind of like a structure going on. So one of the things that I want to actually showcase is I've actually built a Power Automate flow where I have actually a list called invoices in my SharePoint site. So in SharePoint, I have this custom list. And then what I have is a Microsoft Power Automate flow that is kicking in whenever I actually create an invoice. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to go add new event. I'm just going to go invoice number, blah. I can pick a date. And then I'm just going to save that. So what's going to happen is now Microsoft Power Automate is actually monitoring for this. And so it will actually kick in shortly. And then and what I've actually configured so far is that whenever we actually see an invoice coming in to SharePoint, we actually pick that up, and then we actually post that to my accounts channel. So we should have that going on. I think the desktop notifications don't actually work. I think when the sharing is going on, but as you were observing before, now I actually got an activity, as well as I have a message coming into my accounts team, having information around the invoice that I raised. So invoice number, the date, and amount. And this is like a really simple implementation that I've done. And I'll actually open that up. So I'm in. So this is in Power Automate. You can actually find Power Automate using your Office 365 app switcher as well, which is right there. and then I can go into my flows, and I can see this is the one that I was creating before. So the simplest model that I have is, this is the trigger when an item is created, then post a message. So I can actually pick the team, I can pick the channel. So if I was to change around, I can change it. And then I can pick channel, and then I can actually post the message. And then obviously I can piggyback on what I have received from SharePoint. So that is why I've got these blocks that actually renders into dynamic values that I entered in SharePoint, and that's how that message got constructed. But as you can probably tell, it's not the most fantastic looking message. It's rather boring. To be honest, like no one's gonna, no one's productivity is going to go up by looking at that. So it's very basic. So this is where the next topic comes in. Adaptive cards. So adaptive cards is a way of sending rich messages rather than sending quite bland messages. So when I say rich, it's actually quite rich in the sense of you can have images, icons, graphics. You can have different layouts. You can have different controls, and the actual theory behind that is using adaptive cards, you can actually request for input back from. So you can actually get some input back from your recipient. So if I'm posting a message, you can actually get someone to respond back. And the way that it works is you would actually have some sort of a event handler, or it could be another flow. And then you can actually have a rich message that might have a button, it might have a drop down, and then you can actually get that into get that back into your flow, a second flow. And the actual concept behind this is making your messages actionable. So rather than just saying something to someone, saying hey, an invoice has come through, we need your approval for something. So something happened, or we need something from you, kind of thing. So you can actually make your messages a bit more actionable. And I will actually I'll actually go into a demo a bit later on. But I've actually got, since I don't have demos of everything, so I've got some samples to share on the screen. So this is like an adaptive card or an actionable message where we can actually ask for inputs, and as well as have buttons to send the input into another API. You can have graphics, various levels of formatting, as well as bootstrap style, row and column structure, drop downs and all of this stuff. So that's I guess the easiest level of automation. So you are responding to a trigger, and then you would go here, type it in, add action, and then you can actually pick Microsoft Teams, and you can actually pick from all the different actions that's available for you. And then you can post a message, create a channel, list your channels, and do various things. So the next topic is on webhooks. So what I had so far was pretty much PowerAutomate capturing an event and then reacting to that, and by using Teams to send a message. So Microsoft Teams got a built-in functionality for setting up webhooks. And so for people who aren't aware of the concept of a webhook is simply a subscription to a URL, and when a particular event happens, that URL gets triggered with a payload of some sort. So a perfect example is you could have webhooks captured or configured in Azure DevOps. In the sense of Azure DevOps, where your code lives. You can have your development pipelines and your source code and your applications getting built. You can actually configure a webhook so that whenever your build runs, you can actually receive a notification. Or it might be a webhook kind of functionality that's available in your ERP or your CRM. So using webhooks, we can actually make teams react to external events, not necessarily within Office 365 itself. And you are literally, you got access to your the post a message functionality, and it actually supports for the adaptive cards. So it's not just another boring message that you're passing on. You can actually pass back a rich message through webhooks. So let's see how that works. So what I have for webhooks, so the way that you actually set it up is you need to go into your app switcher, and then within Teams you need to actually install the webhook. Wrong place. The incoming webhook functionality, and once you've actually done that, your channels can be configured with a webhook. And the way to do that is by right-clicking the channel, go into connectors, and then you'll actually have the webhook configuration feature. So you can edit from the channel as well. And then you can actually set up like a name for the webhook, upload an image just to so when you have couple of webhooks going on, it's always nice to give them an individual image, so you can identify where the actual messages are coming from, which webhook was getting triggered, and then you can actually create that. And then as soon as you create that, you actually get a URL, and this is the URL that you would actually post into. So this URL, you could use it from Postman. You can use it from your other applications and directly send a message into Teams. So in the interest of time, I actually had a flow or a Microsoft Power Automate flow created. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trigger that, and then it should actually come through into this dev team. So I'm triggering that Power Automate, and then what it's going to do is just it's actually going to post into the Microsoft Teams webhook, and then we just got that one coming in, 429 system alert, and just a sample system alert, and that's the webhook functionality taking place. And the easiest way to get back into the connectors or the webhooks that you already got is to go into connectors and configured, and you can actually see like all the webhooks that have been configured, and then you can manage them. You can delete them, or you can get the URL, upload, like change the icon and things like that. So the next level of automation that you can actually have is through the use of bots. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. I believe you had a session on creating bots for Teams. So as another automation or productivity feature, you can actually have Azure bot services or Power Virtual Agents. So Power Virtual Agent is a interactive WYSIWYG bot building service, which is part of the Power Platform. Or else you can integrate your third-party bots or Azure bot service as well, and then embed the build bots into Teams so that your users can actually interact with the bots directly through your Teams messaging channels. Smart Assistant integration. So this is fairly cool thing that I've been playing with recently. I use a bunch of devices every day. So I'm a big fan of Amazon Echo devices, running Amazon Alexa Smart Assistant, and as well as you have Google Home and Google Assistant, and obviously if you're using iPhones, you have Siri, or if you're using Google or an Android phone, you have Google Assistant built in, or if you're a Cortana fan, and you can integrate that with that as well. So let me actually show you how I've actually set up my Siri integration. So hopefully what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully it would come up. Is everyone able to see my phone screen?
Yes. Yes.
Yep. Cool.
Yep.
So I'm running on the latest version that I can get my hands on of iOS. So recently iOS came up with a feature called Siri shortcuts, and this is where you can actually have automations configured. So I've actually got a team going on, or a shortcut going on, where I'm actually I want to send a message to my team, and these days, what I'm using this for is literally just saying, hey Siri, inform my team that I'm actually working from home. So that's Siri going on. No, we don't want that. Yeah, just asking the assistant to actually get something done. And for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to post a message onto Teams by using Siri. So I'm going to go, hey Siri, team message. I'm working from home today. So this is now triggering my flow. So what happened there was I actually built a Power Automate flow. So I'm going to jump back into that. No. So I actually built a flow called the Siri flow. And then what it's actually got is a HTTP request trigger. So what that does is it actually receives a HTTP request, and then I'm actually posting my message into my staff channel. So if I go back to my channel, so it's actually got that message that I posted saying Sam said I'm working from home today. And if you're interested in how I actually did that within my phone, is so I actually go into iOS shortcuts or Siri shortcuts. I can actually initiate a new one. I can ask for various inputs. I'm actually finding my contact so that I can get my first name, and then I'm actually posting this message. And if you can see here on the request body, I'm actually passing in the message that I said, as well as the first name, and then I'm actually getting a response back. So in my Power Automate, I'm actually sending my response back with a particular message, and then on my Siri shortcut, I can actually pass that, and then do some JSON parsing, and then I can actually speak it out loud, and that's quite like a nifty way of having some automations going on. And I know Teams, so Teams, you can have Teams on your phone, as well as Power Automate runs on your phone as well, where you can trigger various flows, and things like you can have these buttons that you can configure that actually does certain things. But it's always nice to have that kind of integration with the virtual assistant, so that you can actually do a bit more, say while you're driving, or when you don't have your phone with you. So that's again, that's like a pretty bland message. So how can we I guess make this a little bit funky? So I'm gonna go back into my flow, and I'm gonna turn this Other thing that I had. So now what I've actually got is another version of the same thing. But as you can see, I'm actually using like a big JSON text here. And so this is the actual way of doing the rich messaging. And to get to that, you actually have like an online designer that you can actually use. So you can actually use a drag and drop designer, and you can actually start building your rich message. So you can actually create text like text blocks. You can create submit buttons. You can create like different dates and text and various things, and you can actually set those attributes. And then what this actually gives you is that JSON payload that you need to actually use when you're calling the connector. So I have actually built one of these using the online editor, and then I've actually gone back into PowerAutomate, and I've actually replaced parts of that by using the input parameters that I'm receiving. So let's actually trigger that again. Team message.
Shortcut says, "What's your message?"
I'm working from home.
One moment. Your shortcut says, "Okay, team has been notified."
So what did I do or did not do? I didn't save it. Okay, that makes sense. So I'm just going to run this again. So it should just run and come up. So now I've got a rich message coming back. So it's got a, it's got like a bit of a header. It's got, like an icon. It's got some rich text, as well as I can now actually action. So this could be like a message going to a manager, and then the manager is going, yep, approve or reject or something like that. So this is how you would actually do like rich messaging. And this is like really quite cool when it comes to like, integrating Teams with your line of business applications. If you are interacting with, ERP, CRMs, or any other, business application, you can actually have like, actionable messages where your actions can actually go back into the source application. Okay, so a couple of other things that you can do is by using messaging extensions. So messaging extensions are kind of like add-ons for your actual or individual messages. So I'll show that in a sec. And most of you may have actually come across the tabs already. As soon as you create a channel, you have the post, files, and wiki and stuff like that. And also what you could do is like, go into like, your channels, and you can embed various other things. So I have a tab here where I've actually embedded like a Power App. So this could be, a part of Office 365 that you want to embed, like your OneNote notebook, or it could be your, a planner board and things like that, as well as the same functionality can be used to embed other applications, such as what I've done here. But going back to the messaging extension, so messaging extensions actually works on a particular message. So where you can actually invoke that is by going on to an existing message, and then clicking on the ellipsis, and you will get more actions. And you can actually, so this is something that I've configured. So you can actually put in like various actions that will actually run on the message itself. So what that does is it can do two things. It can actually ask for like, various inputs, or else it can actually straight away take this message content and then pass it on to a API endpoint. And then it can also capture the response coming from the API and put that back into the Teams as well. So I don't have the full end-to-end working for the demo, but I hope you can actually get the idea. So this is almost like, invoking another API or invoking some sort of action, and then it'll actually trigger that by taking the content, and then that way you can actually like, get stuff done right within Teams. And then also you have the option of having like, a bit more immersive experience by using like, Teams apps. So what I mean by Teams apps is, so the Microsoft Flow one is the perfect example. So when you actually install the Microsoft or even like, something like Shifts, for example, it's an application that actually runs within Teams. So you can actually have like, different ways of like different types of applications built right into Teams, and to provide a bit more of a immersive experience. If you remember, when a couple of slides into the slide deck, I spoke about approval workflows. So another feature that I had done for demo purposes was to actually create an approval workflow by using PowerAutomate. So I actually had that running behind the scenes at the same time as raising that notification when an invoice got created. So you can easily go into Teams, open up Flow, go into approvals, and you can actually see the approval that you have actually been sent, and you can actually respond to that as well. And this is a built-in functionality of PowerAutomate, where you can actually do the approval workflows right out of Teams. So you can actually trigger something back, and then that's your approval done, like, approve, reject, and then you can actually like, just be more productive, and you're like, back to chatting, back to having your phone calls, and then like, you're approving stuff at the same time. That's kind of like, what you can experience from an immersive app, where you're actually, having like, various windows and tabs and stuff like that. That's built right into Teams. So we saw all of this stuff. Let me just double check that I've actually gone through all my demos. Yep, we've covered it all. So what are the dev tools that you need if you want to get started with this? So the first thing that you need is the Team App Studio. So Team App Studio is the place where you can actually build various things like your tabular apps or the immersive apps. You can build your bots. You can build messaging extensions of Teams. And the way to access that is by going into the Teams App Store and then search for App Studio. And then in the App Studio, you can actually start creating a new app. And then it actually takes you through like the various capabilities of your app, and then allows you to download packages, or you can actually submit your app into the App Store as well, which will go through an approval process. So this is where you would actually do that. And this is what I've had done before, like, my message action. So this is a messaging extension capability where I've got like, various things like, send to ERP or transfer to accounts team style messaging extensions, as well as I had a bot created into Teams as well, which I can interact with, that is actually powered by Power Virtual Agents. And so that's kind of like the final set of capabilities. And so apart from this one, you need to get your hands on the Message Design Studio. So Message Design Studio is this one here. You can find this online, and the Microsoft Bot Framework, as well as so certain things that are available as part of the core API is not actually available in through the connectors or the actions that's sitting inside the PowerAutomate. So that is where the Microsoft Graph API will come into play. So the Graph API provides you with a deeper level access into the Office 365 ecosystem of APIs. So have a bit of a read of that. And I think we have reached the end of the session, and I'm happy to take questions and answers, and I will jump into the live Q&A and see if anything's been posted there, or you can feel free to post your question here as well.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? I know, well, sorry, just to sort of cut off everyone, but to jump in, Sharon, before she had to leave, she commented on my LinkedIn post saying, it's great that we can use PowerAutomate, but I cannot help thinking that it is for experts or people who have time to experiment. For example, for those who are just starting with O365, how we will navigate our way through all the templates, triggers, actions without knowing what they all do, of what business importance we need to apply, or in business improvements we need to apply from them too. So yeah, what's your thoughts on that, Sam?
Yeah, so PowerAutomate is actually built for business users. So it's actually, I wouldn't say it's, you can go from like, Excel and Word straight into PowerAutomate, because it talks about connectors and, triggers. So there's some, skilling up required. But again, PowerAutomate is actually not a dev tool. You'll be surprised that it's actually not meant to be used by devs. It's actually meant to be used by business super users, or application administrators, and people who are not developers by background. And it's all drag and drop. There's no coding involved. You can involve code, but that is optional. And it's all drag and drop. It's literally like drawing a flowchart in Visio. And I just remembered that there's actually an add-on where you can actually design your PowerAutomate flow using Visio, and then you can actually import that into the platform as well. So it's that easy. But yeah, do understand there's a little bit of skilling up required, but it's not at the level of a developer or an IT admin style. So we got a question. Got a question from Andrew. How do we control? Yep. So that's a good question, Andrew. So I'll just quickly get my screen sharing running. So if you go to the Teams administration portal, this is where all the governance takes place. So you can actually monitor all your teams, all the activities, as well as, so this is for Teams, and there's a separate one for PowerAutomate. So it is fully compliant with your, I can't remember exactly what it's called these days, but there is an operations control portion within Office 365 and compliance and audit capability of Office 365, where you can actually monitor the usage as well as move things around. And in the interest of Teams, using the Teams admin, you can disable flows, you can disable bots, and you can have that governance that you need. And that's something that, Daniel was mentioning at the beginning as well. PowerAutomate and Teams, they're not tools that you can simply just download and install and run with, because there are implications when it comes to people creating a bit of a mess out of it if you don't have proper structure and control in place. So, but it is fully supported by the Office 365 administration capabilities, where you can monitor and have an enterprise level arrangement, as well as consider logic apps for enterprise grade control and setup as well.
Does anyone else have any questions or queries or comments or anything regarding Sam's presentation or anything come to mind?
There's another question in the chat that I'd be interested to hear an answer to as well, from Andrew Specterman.
Is that the one? How do we control PowerAutomate business process when the process so they continue to run after a user leaves? And so that was what Sam was just saying, I think, in the admin center.
Oh, sorry, I missed that then. Apologies.
Is that the one you were addressing, Sam? Sorry.
Yeah, that's the one. So it's a bit of a mixture, because the admin control, gives you control of various policies, as well as check usage and maintain the setup in the backend. So those things can be.
But that was Admin Center for Teams you were showing us, wasn't it?
PowerAutomate actually goes under the Office 365 Compliance Center, I believe what it's called as these days. So that actually captures your usage and compliance for all of the products of Office 365. So in there, you can actually govern how how PowerAutomate would actually control and function within the organization.
Right, but is there a specific tool for reassigning ownership of flows?
Yes, so there are functionality within that, so you can monitor who's actually built the flows and things like that, and then take over.
Okay, good.
Anyone else, or has anyone actually done that? I didn't know you could change an owner of a flow. I'm just loading one up now. I'm in there. Oh, yeah, Andrew's saying yes, he's changed owners before. Yep, excellent. I just normally grant permissions. Yep, and you do have to redo all the connections. Andrew's also has said too when you change ownership. Connections would obviously be under.
So that is the problem
within the flow. Within the flow itself, yes.
Yeah.
So that's where you would actually use like logic apps for those really enterprise level ones, because Microsoft was actually targeting PowerAutomate at a user level, not really at an enterprise level. So if you're thinking about an organization building background PowerAutomate style workflows, then logic apps is the one that you need to use, which comes with DevOps functionality, as well as much more monitoring and management control. So because PowerAutomate will always ask the user to actually authorize the connections, and then when you reassign, then it just assumes that you are the new user, and then it asks you to reauthorize. And yeah, that is correct.
Is there any way to change that?
Not for PowerAutomate that I know of at the moment.
Yeah, that's my understanding too, is we can't actually do that for PowerAutomate yet.
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on service accounts? Putting flows under service accounts.
So people are doing that. I mean, I'm not, again, like various organizations have a different view on that. I have seen organizations running a service account style login to create their PowerAutomate flows. Works a treat because it's just a central login, but then the implications are the fact that it actually uses a license rather than, because service accounts generally means they're just a background account, not an interactive login style account. So yeah, I have seen organizations doing that, as well as a majority of the organizations are using logic apps for enterprise level flows.
What do you do, Mark, with your flows? Do you use a service account, or are you putting it under the users?
Pretty much under the users. I try and get the business user to create the first step at least, so that they're the owner, even if I do most of the rest of the development for them. But yeah, it's difficult.
Yeah. So in the case of where you're developing your flows, in collaboration with business users or super users, what you can actually do is you can actually get them to build the majority of the stuff, the majority of the high level flow, and then you can actually export that into a logic apps JSON file, and then you can actually then take that back and then load it up into logic apps, and then and use that kind of as a platform to actually get the business to start building their flows, but eventually it will actually run within an enterprise context.
Interesting. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions or niggle points in the back of their mind for it? No. All right. On that note, we'll probably wrap up for this month. Thank you, everyone, for attending this month's virtual meeting. In light of everything going on, I think we've had a pretty good experience with Microsoft Teams. I didn't experience any hiccups or anything there. So thank you everyone for taking the time and effort to come to today's virtual meeting. Like I said, next month we will be having another virtual meeting, and we will be taking place on the 21st of next month, where we have Jag presenting from Perth. I can't pronounce Jag's last name. Apologies. Where is it? Jag Kakralapludi. Sorry, and Jag's a long-time SharePoint and over 365 person, and he's got some amazing stuff to show us. And I'll hope to see everyone all on the 21st of next month. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, Sam, for presenting. Without you, it wouldn't be possible, so thank you yet again for presenting.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
See you later, everyone. Thank you.